Hi guys, GradysMom here with Cooking Series Volume 14. I'm going to be doing a shepherd's pie and I'm going to be using some beef. You can also use ground turkey, but I personally like it better with the beef. So you're going to need a pound of ground beef. This recipe is for about 4 people. So obviously if you're cooking for a bigger family, you're going to want to double, everything for 2 pounds of meat. But for 4 people, 4 servings, I'm going to do a pound of ground beef, a bag of mixed vegetables. This is just a 15-ounce bag. I'll probably use close to all of it. So I'm just using the frozen carrots, corn, green beans, peas, and lima beans. Again, just a mixed veggie. You're going to need potatoes to make the mashed potatoes on top. I like to add cheese to mine. You're going to need about half of a medium cooking onion or just 1 small onion. I really like mushrooms, so I'm going to go ahead and put some mushrooms in. I'll probably put about half of these in. And then to season the beef, I'm going to use Parmesan cheese, some Worcestershire sauce, some dried parsley, some seasoned salt, some garlic powder. Might throw in a little bit of black pepper as well. And a couple things that are not pictured are butter and milk, which I'm going to use to whip up and mash the potatoes. But I figured everybody knows what milk and butter look like. So that is sort of missing from this pile. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to get my beef browning up and seasoned. I'm going to get my potatoes in some boiling water to make the mashed potatoes and take you guys along for the ride. Okay guys, step 1, get your beef browning up so that it can cook up and then you can drain the fat. And then I have a big pot of water getting ready to go into a boil. And then over here, I have my potatoes peeled. So let me go ahead and set this up really quick. Okay guys, so again, potatoes are peeled. I have 3 larger potatoes and 2 smaller ones. And again, this is for 4 servings, and I just sort of cut them chunky like that because they're gonna get mashed. But the key is with potatoes, when you're making them for mashed potatoes, you wanna try and get them around the same size pieces, which can be a little difficult sometimes when you're working with both large and small potatoes. So just do your best to try to get them around the same size chunks, just because they'll cook more evenly. But if you can't, you can't, and it's not a tragedy. But it's just a little kind of tip that I've noticed with mashed potatoes and a lot of different things. You want to try to get them around the uniform, sort of around the same size. So these now are the 3 bigger ones. So I'm going to have to make, a couple more cuts, but no big deal. So you definitely want to multitask, which is why I have the beef going, the water boiling, and as soon as I drop these potatoes in the water, I am going to get my oven preheating so that I can put this in the casserole dish and bake it. So I'm just giving my beef a quick toss around the pan, kind of moving it around, because I like to, me personally, I like to keep everything kind of, keep the ball moving and not have to wait for anything. So when like I said, when I throw the potatoes in and then I start the oven on preheat, chances are my oven will be waiting for me, which is what I want, versus me standing there with it ready to go in the oven and the oven, isn't ready kind of thing. So I'm just quickly running through these. Doesn't have to be anything fancy because they're all going to get mashed up anyways. It's probably a little bit more potatoes than I need now that I'm looking at it, but if there are any extra, I will have no problem getting a nice bowl of mashed potatoes for myself and putting some butter on it and eating them plain. My husband is not a huge mashed potato fan. He definitely hates gravy, which I'm the opposite. I love gravy, but he's not a huge mashed potato fan. But he does like this dish because there's no gravy, and he just likes the way that I flavor them. Okay, so potatoes are done. Let me show you guys the colander I've put them in. So I'm gonna go ahead, get my meat moved around the pan, and I'll be right back with you in just a second. Okay guys, let me show you what I have going on. I dropped my potatoes. The water was at a nice rolling boil. So I dropped those in, and the pot has some salt in the water just so the potatoes get a little bit of salt flavor, because potatoes, as you know, lack salt greatly. I have preheat my oven to 425, so that's just starting to preheat. I have my timer set on my microwave for the potatoes. And then I have my ground beef all drained and cooked in this pan, just waiting on me. My colander is all cleaned out, waiting to accept the potatoes. And now I'm going to finish my veggies. And my veggies have to get just quickly sauteed. Just the mushrooms and the onion. The mixed vegetables don't. I'm just gonna very roughly chop these. Mushrooms shrink a lot, so there's no need to spend time dicing them because they're gonna shrink anyways. I think I need a few more. I really like mushrooms. I know it's kind of one of those things, you either love them or you hate them. I love mushrooms, like to the point of obsession. I'm just gonna go ahead and grab a smaller pan to put these in real quick, guys. So I'm going to put my mushrooms right in my pan. So as you can see, there are a few steps to making this dish, as there are for any dish, but I love shepherd's pie. I don't make it that much, to be honest. And it's not something my mom made that much growing up. She made it once in a while, mainly like in the fall and the winter. But I really love it, and for some reason this morning, I woke up and I said, I really want shepherd's pie, which is kind of random, but I don't know. I just was like, I want mashed potatoes, I want meat, I want shepherd's pie. So I did have to go out to Publix and get a few things to make that happen. I had to get the beef and a couple other things. Because all I had was turkey meat, and even though you can make the same exact recipe the same way with turkey meat, I don't know. I just really prefer it with beef. So the onions I am going to dice a little bit finer, not baby fine, but I just don't want huge chunks of onions running through my shepherd's pie, and I do love me some onions. So I'm just dicing them just a little bit finer. That looks good. I'm going to add these right to the pan with the mushrooms. Like that. I'm going to go ahead and get these cooking, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so mushrooms and onion are on almost high, like medium high. So I have some butter in the middle. I gave them a little salt. I'm gonna do a little pepper because I like to flavor each layer of flavor, if you will. So these are not gonna take long at all. You guys know how fast mushrooms cook up. So just gonna let these hang out and do their thing. Potatoes are bubbling away. Gonna have to give those a stir, and it's coming together. Now we're gonna season our meat. Okay guys, potatoes are still boiling away. Mushrooms and onions are actually where I need them to be. I'm going to show you real quick. Okay, so they literally took less than 5 minutes. I'm just going to take them off the burner but leave them on the stove top. The reason I'm not going to cook them more is this dish is going to bake in the oven, so they're going to finish cooking. I just wanted a little bit of caramelization on the onions, and now we're ready to season the meat. So I'm just going to break up any big, huge chunks. I don't want it completely minced, but just any big pieces. I'm just going to use my spoon to break up. I also decided on a whim, because you guys know I do that, I'm also going to add some Frank's Red Hot, which totally optional. Not a lot. It's not going to overpower it, but I just like the element of hot sauce. Let me just move my tripod back so hopefully you guys can see everything I'm doing. So first I'm going to go in with that hot sauce. And again, this is totally optional. It's definitely not a standard ingredient in shepherd's pie. I just like it. Next up I'm doing Worcestershire, which I also do not know if that is a traditional shepherd's pie recipe. I don't really follow the rules, as you guys know. So I'm going to put a bunch of Worcestershire on here, and this will also, you know, all the two liquids that I added will make sure this doesn't dry out. Next we're doing garlic powder. I'm going to do quite a bit because I like garlic. I'm just going to do quite a few nice shakes. Next up, I'm going to do just a little bit of seasoned salt because the Worcestershire does have salt. So just kind of a nice little sprinkle. I'm going to do some parsley. Going to go a little heavy, a little bit heavy, but I'm also going to add a little bit of parsley to the top of the potatoes to give them give it a nice color. And lastly, Parmesan cheese. Again, also not too much because Parmesan cheese is pretty salty. Okay, and then lastly, I'm just going to do some black pepper, which I mentioned earlier that I might end up doing. Just a little bit of black pepper because that hot sauce does have some heat. So I think I'm going to kind of work this in just to get a feel to make sure that the seasoning is right. And you don't want it goopy, but you know, you kind of want that nice balance of where it's moist but not wet, because you definitely don't want a wet shepherd's pie. So that looks pretty good, actually. I think I hit the nail on the head. Now, another thing to consider, if this is the point where you guys want to taste this mixture, okay? Don't be alarmed if it tastes too salty, and don't freak out, because you're going to be adding vegetables, okay? And these vegetables right here that I'm adding, the mixed vegetables, they don't really have any salt. You know, they're not salted. They're just your basic steamed vegetables, which I can't get open, so I'm gonna have to grab a knife really quick. So, if you're gonna taste test the meat again, if it's a little salty, don't be alarmed, because once you add in, I'm adding in the veggies now, I'm gonna start with about half the bag and kind of eyeball it. Just remember, guys, the vegetables are going to soak up some of that salt. So I added now about 3/4 of the bag. I'm a big believer in not adding everything all at once for certain things, because it's a lot harder to take it out than add more. So this consistency to me looks pretty good. Keep in mind we're also adding the mushrooms and the onions, and we don't want it to be all veggies. So I do have, I don't know, about 1/4 of this bag left, which I'll just throw in a Ziploc and use for a future recipe. So this is just my personal preference for consistency of ratio of meat to mixed veggies. Now I'm going to grab my mushrooms and onions, and I'm going to get these in as well. And again, these veggies will absorb some of that saltiness that the meat might have before you add the veggies. Hopefully you guys are following here. So I'm just going to incorporate that in. Looks pretty good. Okay, so my timer just went off on my potato. Nope, that was my oven is preheated. So there we go. My oven is now waiting for me. Okay, so that looks like the consistency that you want. I'm going to go ahead and wait for the potatoes to get done, and I'll show you how this all comes together and how I mash the potatoes and all that good stuff. Okay guys, so the potatoes were done. Good thing I checked them, they were done. You want them to pretty much be fork tender, to where when you poke a fork in one, it goes right through. So I just did that, took the actual piece of potato out, tasted it. It was perfect consistency, nice and soft, but not mushy. So unfortunately, this is as close as I can get to the pot without fogging up the lens, and hopefully it won't even fog up from here. But I just wanted to show you guys the ratio, or you know, kind of how I do the mashed potatoes. So I'm gonna start out with adding some butter. So I have 1 heaping tablespoon and 2 heaping tablespoons. So I'm gonna start with that. Next up, I'm gonna do some parsley inside of it. It actually didn't need salt, so I'm gonna skip the salt, and I'm gonna add some milk. Milk just kind of makes them, and very little milk, by the way, guys. Milk just kind of makes them very light and fluffy, a little bit light and fluffier. I have made mashed potatoes without milk. They were perfectly fine, but I definitely think, I've just got my potato masher here, guys. I definitely think the milk makes them a little bit fluffier. So I don't want to mash them to where they're mush. You know, I like a little bit of chunk in there, but they are mashed potatoes regardless. So you're definitely looking for a nice creamy consistency. Let me just make sure I'm getting it. This looks good. Let me show you guys the consistency. Let me just kind of push the sides down. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. If there's a couple little chunks of potato in there, it's not the end of the world. I'm just so anti-perfect cooking. I'm totally about just going with the flow and trying to kind of have fun with it so that you enjoy it more, and not having everything have to be so like Martha Stewart picture perfect. I'm just not like that in any aspect of my life. All right, so That is roughly, I don't want to get too close, the consistency. See how it's sort of chunky but still smooth? So let's do the fun part now and assemble the shepherd's pie. Okay guys, we have a 9 by 13 baking dish, sort of your standard size, kind of cake, big cake pan, 9 by 13, very common size. So first I'm gonna spray it with cooking oil, just to cut down on a little bit of the scrubbing time at the end. And I'm gonna go in first with my meat. So I'm gonna get this meat all in here first. Smells so good. And we'll be having this for dinner tonight. And also, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have some right now for lunch. My son is at school and this is calling my name. Okay, so you wanna spread out, let me just make sure you guys can see. You wanna spread this out and you want it to be pretty even. Not perfect, but just sort of a pretty even layer. It'll just cook better, it'll look better, and it'll portion out better. So just use the back part of your spoon. Oh, this smells so good. To just push it down a little bit. You don't want it to be all loose, you want it sort of packed in so it bakes really nice, okay? So that is that layer. Next up, let's get our potatoes in. And I apologize if the lens is fogging up right now. I'll take a peek in a second to make sure you guys can even see. Let me just peek really quick to make sure. Okay, it looks okay so far. I would just be so mortified if I went through this whole part and not realizing that you guys could not see what I was doing. So I'm just kind of getting them on and then we'll work on spreading them out. Don't think I'm gonna have any mashed potatoes left over for me, so I think I used the right amount, which is good, because I'm gonna be eating some of this regardless. Okay, so that's the potatoes. Now, you're just use your spoon and just, you know, cover the meat. Just very gently, because you don't want to move the meat around too much. And again, nothing has to be perfect. Just try and do the best that you can do. And just try and cover the meat as best you can. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. I don't know about you, but it looks pretty good. Mmm, so yummy. Okay, hopefully you guys can see. Mmm. Next up, cheese. I'm using the Sargento 4-state cheddar. Absolutely love this stuff. I'm probably gonna need more. This was about half a bag. So I'm gonna get my other bag that's in the fridge. So I'm just gonna lightly spread this on top. Again, this was half of a 8-ounce bag. So I'm gonna get another bag out of my fridge quickly. Okay, and then I'm gonna cheese the other half. Just lightly. I mean, you can go heavy if you wanna go heavy. I would say I do moderate amount. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm just gonna gently use my hands to make sure the cheese is as evenly distributed as possible without being too picky about it. Okay, and then lastly, take some more parsley and just put a little bit of parsley on top. I just really like how parsley finishes things off. I don't know, that's just me. Okay, it looks pretty good, guys. This is what she looks like before we go in the oven. Oven is preheated. I'm gonna pop her in for a half an hour and show you guys how it looks when it comes out. Okay, so we're done. I did 25 minutes on 425, and for the last 4 to almost 5 minutes, I put it on broil. However, I would not recommend doing that unless you're an experienced person as far as broiling, because for anybody who's had a bad experience with broiling, you can literally run to go to the bathroom and your dinner can be ruined, because broiling is hot. It's like 525 degrees. Very easy to ruin a beautiful dinner. Luckily, I've just done it so many times. I know how to just keep an eye on it and stay focused to pay attention. But everything looks nice. Again, 25 minutes at 425. And then the broiler kind of just got everything just a little bit browned and crispier. So now is the hardest part, which is waiting 5 minutes before I can cut it. Because you just want to let it set a little bit, guys. Yes, you can dig in right now, but it'll be a little bit goopy. I find if you just give it just 5 minutes, when you cut into it, it just stays together a little bit better. But that is how it looks. Super delicious, smells so good. And I'll be back in about 5 minutes to show you how it looks when it's all plated up. And I'm about to go in. So 5 minutes, see how cleanly it comes out, guys. And it just cuts nice and cleanly. I just used a knife just to kind of cut around, and then I just scooped it gently out with a spatula. And just from those 5 minutes, it just stays in a nice clean piece like that. If you're one of those people that doesn't care about that, then I say go for it. But I'm just weird and I like it to come out a little bit neater. Just think it looks better and it's just more appealing to the eye. But that's just me. So as you can see, all that meat is kind of hanging out underneath these cheesy potatoes. It looks so good, and it finally feels like a fall day here. It's not too hot, it's only about 70, and I'm gonna dig in and enjoy my lunch. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Again, this is volume 14 of my cooking series, Shepherd's Pie. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I will have all the ingredients and instructions typed up down below like I always do. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.